Shalom, family. This is your brother Jose. I want to start off by giving all praise and honor to the Most High Yahweh and His only begotten Son Yahweh Shai. I'm over here trying to do this video about the so-called Virgin of Guadalupe, or Our Lady, as they say. This is a stronghold for Issachar, and once they see this information, they're gonna be shook out of their foundation and hopefully leave that Catholic Church because it's full of lies. So I'm just gonna start with the actual Franciscans, anthropologists, when they came into this land uh, in Mexico, how they study the natives, they study their culture, and basically, we're gonna get a little deeper into this, but this is a name we want to like remember right now. This is Bernardino de Sahagún. So we just gonna look at what he did. He was a anthropologist, and he wrote a lot of like important information and all that kind of stuff, right? So he kind of was just working with this other guy who was an actual uh, some of his books. He was an actual native, but he was also like I think a governor. Let me see. Yeah, he was a governor. This is Antonio Valeriano Shalakia. So he was working with again Bernardo Sagun, and kind of like this was before the Spaniards came in, and they pretty much took over everything. They were just kind of learning their culture so they could kind of find a way where they could like entice them to join Catholicism by having a deity that resembles to Nansen. And this is who we're going to go into in a second. It's is This is to Nansen. Basically, they studied her, but we're gonna go back here again. So that's what they were doing. They were studying their culture so they could show them a deity and kind of replace their beliefs with the updated version. So this is um this is Antonio Valeriano. This dude right here. He wrote a book, um, Nika Mapoa, and basically, I think we want to go down to which page is it? We just want to like take a few notes and to be really clear that this was written in 1560, but it's telling a story about 1531. So as of right now, I'm sure you guys may or may not know the story, so I'm just going to give you a brief breakdown. So, this guy named Juan Diego, um, this is just a book about him, like how they came to find this lady. So basically, let's see what happened right here, right? According to the Nikama Power, that's the book I show you. In 17th century, sure. The Virgin Mary appeared 4 times to Juan Diego, a Chichimeca peasant, and once his uncle Juan Bernardino. The first apparition occurred in the morning of Saturday, December 19th, so like 1531, Julian calendar, which is December 19th, proleptic Gregorian calendar in this present use. Juan Diego experienced a vision of a young woman on a hill of Tepeyac. I will look at that in a second. Guadalupe, Silver, Mexico City. Okay. Villa. Okay, cool, cool, cool. So basically, this peasant saw this woman appear to him on a hill, and she told him, come build me a temple here so you can worship me. I mean, we could read down. I'm sure it's gonna tell us about the story, and we could go into that, like I said, shortly. But basically, Juan Diego was this person that claims that the Catholic faith claims that saw this apparition, right? So Again, this is 1531, right? And mind you, the first time they ever wrote about him, this the whole reason why this book exists right here, because this is called Manuel Limon. That's, I believe, a Catholic bishop. I'm not exactly sure. We'll look into that. Uh-huh. So we're gonna look about who Juan Diego was. Oh, man, I'm horrible writing Spanish. Slovakia. Here we go. So basically, I'm just gonna cut the snake's head right off the back and be like, there's no proof. I could translate the Spanish if you like, but I'm gonna read it real quick. So, considero que es importante contestar, dicen Estados Unidos, una historia de pedirles que encuentren a Juan Diego. Si no parece que. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna. It's basically trying to tell you like there's no proof that Juan Diego ever existed. Juan Diego is kind of like Spanish version of John Doe. Like some native Juan Diego, like when they just somebody, you know what I mean? Somebody saw her, and yeah. So this is the part where it says, "No parece." Okay, we're just gonna Google Translate this because I know some of you don't, you know, speak Spanish. You're like, what is brother talking about? If it does not appear, there remains at the line risk of condensation of symbols and answers of those subordinate. We're gonna go back to this. Oh yeah, we're gonna hit on this. You're gonna be like, what is this talking about? Might as well. This is called King's Cake, right? So we're gonna go into. I guess we're working backwards now. Um, what is this word called? Coloridianism? Salakia. My pronunciation ain't all that good, but um, see, that's where it comes from. So I'm making a link to that. I'm working backwards, you know. Coloridianism was an alleged early Christian movement in Arabia whose adherent worshipped the Virgin Mary, Mother of Jesus, as a goddess and possibly as the member of the Trinity. So, according to the Epiphanius, certain women in largely pagan Arabia, this is what we're going to look into, synthesize or syncretize indigenous beliefs with the worship of Mary and offered little cakes or bread rolls. These cakes were called colorists, and as you see this, it's very similar to the tradition of the king's rosca, or and they bury a little baby Jesus, and if you find it, you got to make tamales. That's traditions. So basically, that's pagan beliefs, and it's and interestingly enough, I mean, we could just Google this. Let's see, Lupe origin. Spanish. So it comes from. It's an Arabic phrase. So there you go, and go back to this. That's just like the fusion of pagan beliefs, but this is the thing we're gonna look at this. Syncretism, the practice of combining different beliefs and various schools of thought. Syncretism involves the merging or assimilating of several original discrete traditions, especially in theology and mythology of religion. So what happened was syncretism failed, and the natives were allowed to bypass um, the Catholics in a way where they still worship their deity. But again, pagan Arabia. I don't know how they get that, but we'll look at that later. Going back again, because we skipped over this. We're gonna go right here, and again, 1960. Again, I keep saying 1960. Lock it. 1560. This was published, but mind you, this is talking about 1531. So up until this point, um, no one knows who Juan Diego is. No one's talking about him. The first time he's ever mentioned, I believe. Let me see if it's in this book. I believe it's in this book. The first time someone ever writes about him, and it's this book was published in. Look down, 1648. And hold on, let me look at this. Yeah, I got a lot of PDFs. I'm not gonna read them all, but come back to this one. They're basically saying there's more proof that this guy probably did it to this, but nobody wrote about him until they already kind of smoothed everything out and took over Mexico and indoctrinated the indigenous people, and they just rebranded their practices and gave it a Catholic name. But Juan Diego wasn't time. So let's see if we go down here. So right here is a part. The part we're gonna quote this because we're gonna Google Translate it. So it is more of a myth and a symbol than a being of flesh and blood. So they just keep saying, Juan Diego was more of a myth. Again, Juan Diego was basically John Doe, and if you guys didn't know that, but Juan Diego wasn't his name. He had a novel name supposedly. So we'll just go with that. Again, I have the book over here. Um, I think this had the quotes, everything. Yeah, we're good on that. We're good on that. We're gonna go back to this guy though. So Juan de Zumarraga. Okay, so this guy came after the Spanish Inquisition and everything was, kind of like already in here. He did meet, I believe, Fray de Segun, which would be this guy. No, yeah, and Fray just means Franciscan. Uh, they just, you know, a lot of them are called Frays. Look, yeah, Franciscan. There you go. European Mexico. And this guy, I mean, they say he was a protector of Indians. I don't know about that, but all right. We're gonna touch on this guy a little bit later. Basically, he was around, you know, at this time from 1531. They spoke about Juan Diego, and they never mentioned the Virgin Mary appearing. Like you could try looking up the Virgin apparition. Not it doesn't show up. It was the first bishop of Mexico, so you would think the first bishop of Mexico, right around that time frame. Hey, man, there's this virgin apparition, right? You would think they would mention it, and that's the whole point. He doesn't take account. Nobody mentions that till 20 years later, till they conveniently already had, their replacement. And we're gonna get into that in a second. I went into this. This is where they first mentioned the apparition of the Virgin to Juan Diego's uncle and him. And it's gonna say in 1531, but you got to remember, like this is not published in that year, so it was several years after they start talking about that happened back then. Yeah, but that's an old book. We're gonna look into this guy now. So Alonso de Montufar, Slovakia. Not a Spaniard. We're just gonna take this into account really quick. We're gonna go all the way down here, and this is in English, so this should be easy. So there we go. So this guy You can see that it actually talks about the cult of Guadalupe. So what is this cult of Guadalupe? It's the cult to Nansen. We went into that already. We'll go. We'll look at this. That's the Nansen. I'll show you a quick picture. Don't get freaked out. But that's the Nansen. Uh, Tzihokotl Tosi, which is our grandma, la madre de los dioses. That means our mother, and that's why they get Our Lady. That means Tosi. So yeah, it's not Christ's mother. It's our mother. You know what I mean? Everyone knows um, that this is Our Lady of Guadalupe. It's not the Virgin Mary, and she looks different. So we're gonna go into that shortly, and hopefully I'm not too long winded. But we're gonna go back. I think we're right here. So basically, this is the funny part. I highlighted it. So we could read up September 6th. The conflict between the Archbishop and the Franciscan minister provenical of the cult of Tepeyac. So Tepeyac is that Guadalupe, and that's where we're going to them. That's began early 1556. So you see that's almost 20 years after they mentioned that, right? Like that's kind of when they figured out a way to, you know, switch it. But we're gonna focus on this thing out here, right? We could reread this. I'm just not trying to bore you guys. The friar asserted that the possession of the Archbishop threatened to uproot the fragile Christianity in the indigenous population. Okay, cool. Bustamante also thought the alleged traumatic effect of the picture was a hoax, questioning how the picture painted yesterday by an enemy could perform miracles. So, if you guys don't know, I'll go back to this story, right? So, Juan Diego, asked for like a proof, hey, help me show the Catholics that you're real. Give me a sign, right? And she's like, "Go get some flowers," and then he got some flowers, and supposedly in his he had like a raiment or something. Her image appeared on there, right? So you could go down here and read it. Second time she asked me to insist and say, started to return to Pias, as the ones truly accept this miraculous sign to her deity. Later that day, the third apparition appeared Juan Diego turned to Piac and encountered the same woman for the Archbishop request, which she consented to promise. Okay, let's say. It's down here where he asked her to take some flowers, right? Okay. To avoid delay. Right here. According to the story, the Virgin arranged the flower of Juan Diego's to mount. Oh, let's look at that. So basically, like a garment or a cloak, right? And when they opened his cloak later that day, the Archbishop Sumarga, that's the guy we were looking up earlier, the flowers floated to the floor, revealing the fabric, the image of the Virgin, right? So we're like, oh dang, this this image supposedly was painted on his raiment like a miracle. And we're gonna like just knock that out of here first because this image was painted. Um, we're gonna see. I don't know if you can see that symbol right there, but it's like a little flower. It's like this without the cross, so it's just that one, that one, and that one, and that one. That's a Nahuatl symbol, and basically, it's like that. Basically, the only in the Aztec cosmology of very meanings. Um, Marcos Cepac de Aquino, he's actually a really good artist. He actually went to school. He's not just like a random street artist. He's the one that painted the Virgin. He's a painting. So how is you know a stained image on a clothing gonna be made by a person? That's kind of where you start seeing like inconsistencies. And yeah, he painted it. he was hiding his symbols in there because they were destroying everything, right? So he couldn't put these symbols into his paintings. They were destroying. He couldn't do that. But this flower one, there is a symbol for it. I couldn't find it, but that's the main one. That's where it all comes from. So I went there with this. Okay. So basically, we're gonna go back to that because maybe you guys got a little lost. You're like, what's going on? So we're gonna read it again. It says Bustamante also thought that the alleged um, thaumaturgic effect of the picture was a hoax and questioned how a picture painted yesterday by an Indian could perform miracles. So that's what they're talking about. This Indian, Marcos Ipag, painted this picture. And how's that even going to be perform miracles? Like, that's ridiculous. That's not, anything that you should be, like, amazed by. It's this painting. We're going to skip a little further. So this guy was around too. He's another ethnographer, Franciscan friar, like I said. It's a member of the Medical Order Roman Catholic Church. Oh, so like, okay. Thought I said Franciscan. I might have been wrong. Don't come at me for that. Okay, anyways. He wrote a book, right? And he was around the time, I think when he was older, he was around. So this is his book right here. Fray Juan de Torquemada. Just gonna go to page 357. And I'm trying to translate something. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. He was against idolatry. He was basically saying, "Hey, don't build the temple for the natives because you know uh, that's idolatry. They're only going there to worship their deity, even though you say it's the Virgin." You know, so he was against that, but he was talking about that. Let's see. I'm just trying to translate, try to figure out what I'm going to translate. So they were blind through idolatry. Spanish blinded by the evil of idolatry, according to their paintings of the Indians. It has appeared that year that Cortez was born, which was one of the 1485, a very solemn festival was held in the city of Mexico on the declaration of the main temple of the idols, in which the captives were sacrificed. As we have mentioned, dealing elsewhere, we must note that the outcry of so much human bloodshed and injury to its creator would be enough. Many other things which would have moved God to the remedy of these faults were not there. For him to say, as he said of the Israelites in other times, I saw the affliction of his miserable people. Man, so he's even mentioning, what, like that's pretty bad, like he's correlating to the wickedness of our people. And it's just like, damn, dude, that's pretty bad. So that's something I thought I mentioned, but basically, he said, this he's against idolatry, and he's trying to say that I think is it Escobar, Pablo Escobar, Marquez Cortez, the name he just said. Let me see. Let me go back. Hernan Cortez, yeah. Basically, he's trying to paint him as a messiah because he came to the Americas or Mexico to get rid of um, the idolatry because he believed in um, this was his first. This was the Virgin of Guadalupe, and Guadalupe is a place I believe in Spain, and he wanted to bring yeah, Spain. He wanted to bring his Virgin over and ultimately, show the natives how it's done, trying to be right. But we're gonna go back over here. I believe it was right here because I want to touch on. This is a book, Pablo Sol. I'm just gonna skip over here because this is from the Pablo Sol. Here you can see that quotes the book. I just don't want to go through it because it's a lot of scrolling. But um, it basically says, nuestra madre means our mother, Tonantzin, Teotihuacan, la madre de los dioses, and Tosi, nuestra abuela. I think I went over this. But this is Cihuacuatl, or Coacuatl, is the mother of Huitzilopochtli, and, many other so-called gods. But that's the image, where they try to read. This was their so-called Virgin Mary. We could, again, go over here, where you can see she got the snake parts, the hands, the belt. There's another one right there. And see, that's a little sash. That's that belt right there. Hands, the snakes. Some say this thing right here is her hair is the snakes. Yeah, her hair, the fangs or whatnot. But this is basically who they would sacrifice people. They were not just saying her, but this is who they would, be so devoted up on that hill, which we're gonna look at right now. I'll bring out she got this is the Mexican song of Our Lady of Guadalupe. I'm not gonna go through it so much. I'm just gonna point out like two things. This is the lyrics. It says Juan Diego, right? The Virgin said, "This hill I choose, this hill I choose, this hill I choose for my altar to be built." And this basically talking about Anuak, and everyone knows the Tepeyac. So it's telling you like from this place to that place is gonna be my altar. So this is Tepeyac. This is where Juan Diego was at. And from this is the base of her altar to Anak over here. So this is basically her, if you want to say it, is the green lady right here. And, you know, it all started where we're going to go look at this article. Basically, the War of the Virgins. There was the so called Lady of Guadalupe versus a Spanish one. And ultimately, um, this was Tonantzin, but then she took over the name because, again, we're gonna look at the original one. So this was a Miguel Hidalgo. He was I think it was a bishop, or which was he? I think he was a religious person. Hold on. He started like the revolution. Basically, he got all the natives like, "Hey man, we just go kick these guys' butt." So the first war, they got the revolution from Mexico. Yeah, that's Miguel Hidalgo launching Mexican War of Independence, and basically it said this land versus that land. This think it was in Isaiah chapter 23, verse 12. Oh, is it that? Look at Bible. What is it, 20? Virgin Daughter said John. I'm gonna have to look at that. But basically, sometimes I found my Zonder one. I got to get it in a second, but basically, the Virgin um isn't necessarily referring to as a person, but more like as a city or a nation in a sense. So this Virgin, right? This land is gonna fight this land, and that's kind of how it all came to be. Um, Other than that, let's see. Yeah, we went over that. Yeah, but Tananta was basically a Aztec deity, and it was just you know how do you call it? It wasn't by coincidence. They kind of studied them. They knew the traditions, and they kind of spoiled them. And that's pretty much it, man. Like, hope you found this video useful. Like it's my first time doing one, so I don't mind it. But we could look more into this where you can see, there's this is another person, like completely different. That's the not scene. Don't get fooled. Um, that's an actual person or actual deity, so like yeah. Yeah, I'll do it. Thanks for watching.